Hello, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're respectfully exploring an absolutely beautiful, poignant classic by the legendary American writer O. Henry. It's called The Last Leaf. Now, whether you're encountering this narrative for the very first time or returning to an old favorite, my goal is to guide you clearly through its profound themes. We're going to be talking about sacrifice, art, and the incredible power of hope.
Here is a quick roadmap of what we'll cover today. First, we'll look at the Greenwich Village artists, then Pneumonia and Fading Hope, followed by The Falling Ivy Leaves, Behrman's secret masterpiece, and we'll wrap up with The Power of Art. Let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the Greenwich Village artists, where we'll be meeting our characters.
So our story drops us right into the heart of Greenwich Village. And this isn't just a backdrop, it's a vibrant, living community. It's this place where young artists have flocked to form really deep connections. They bond over shared interests that appeal directly to the senses, things like art, food, and fashion. And within this little enclave, we meet Sue and Johnsy. They're two young artists sharing a studio apartment, and their shared passions have forged a deep, abiding artistic bond. They aren't just roommates, they're kindred spirits taking on the world together.
Let's quickly lay the foundation with our three main players before things really kick off. First, we have Sue. She's the dedicated caretaker, funding their humble life through commercial art, and she is fiercely optimistic. Then there's Johnsy. She's been tragically struck down by illness. She dreams of painting the Bay of Naples, but sadly, she has entirely lost her will to live. And finally, we have Mr. Behrman. He's an old, heavy-drinking, failed artist who has literally spent 40 years waiting for the inspiration to paint his true masterpiece. Keep these characters in mind because their motivations are the engine of our whole story.
Moving right along to Section 2, Pneumonia and Fading Hope. This is the inciting incident of our tale.
The conflict really begins when Johnsy contracts a severe case of pneumonia. Her condition is incredibly dire. Because Johnsy has just given up the will to live, the attending doctor gives her a heartbreaking 1 in 10 chance of survival. But the doctor points out something crucial. Hope is a powerful remedy. If she simply decides to embrace life, her chances will drastically improve. The irony here, though, the doctor actually ridicules Johnsy's deep desire to paint the Bay of Naples, even though that artistic aspiration is exactly the kind of hope she desperately needs to cling to right now.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict we're dealing with. On one hand, you've got Sue's diligent optimism. She's working her tail off at commercial art to earn money despite their poverty, and she's putting on a brave, cheerful face to rally her roommates' spirits. On the other hand, you see Johnsy's profound sense of hopelessness. She is entirely fixated on this ivy vine outside their window, stubbornly waiting for its leaves to fall. She's absolutely convinced her life will end with that final leaf. It's this powerful clash between the will to live and the total surrender to despair.
Now for Section 3, The Falling Ivy Leaves. Let's explore this stunning visual metaphor. So, what is the deal with these ivy leaves? Well, they actually serve two very distinct symbolic purposes. First, as the leaves fall away one by one, they represent Johnsy's slow, tragic detachment from life and her complete loss of hope. She's basically using them as a ticking clock on her own existence. But secondly, that final, solitary leaf clinging tenaciously to the vine, it becomes a profound symbol. It represents Johnsy's absolute final hold on life and essentially her remaining connection and bond with Sue. As long as it holds on, there's a chance.
Right before the night of the terrible storm, O. Henry brings Mr. Behrman back into focus. He acts as both a parallel and a foil to Johnsy. You see, they both lack hope, and they're both waiting for an outside force to change their lives. But their differences are absolutely crucial. Behrman is actively seeking a spark of inspiration to create, while Johnsy is just passively seeking the embrace of death. Furthermore, despite his gruff exterior and his vocal dismissal of Johnsy's depression, Behrman actually harbors this deeply fierce, protective nature over these two young women.
That brings us to Section 4, Behrman's secret masterpiece, the story's climax.
Let's walk through the events of this incredibly suspenseful night. In the evening, Behrman sees Johnsy's terrible condition with his own eyes, and he leaves. Then, night falls, bringing a fierce, violent storm of wind and rain. This storm perfectly mirrors the inner turmoil of all three characters. Sue is sitting in the dark room with the window shade drawn, and her own optimism is severely threatened by the fear that this storm will inevitably rip that final leaf loose. But the next morning, as they bravely raise the shade, the women are completely surprised. A single leaf remains.
The last leaf survives. And guys, this is the emotional pivot of our narrative. For a whole day and another stormy night, that final leaf clings to the wall. Finally, the sheer tenacity of this small piece of nature inspires Johnsy. She realizes that her desire to die was wrong. She takes the leaf's stubborn survival as a direct sign that she too must hold on to life. Because of this single remaining leaf, her bleak demeanor vanishes, and her will to live finally returns.
And finally, Section 5, the power of art, where we'll unpack the deeper thematic meaning.
So the crucial point is revealed in the story's fast-paced falling action, and it is heartbreaking. We learn that Mr. Behrman has tragically passed away from pneumonia. Why? Well, because during that freezing violent storm, he sacrificed himself. He climbed a ladder in the biting cold and rain to physically paint that last leaf onto the brick wall. He knew Johnsy's life depended on that leaf never falling, so he made sure it never would. It is an act of ultimate heroic sacrifice born purely out of his protective love for his neighbor.
Which brings us to the core message of O. Henry's work. That leaf on the wall? It wasn't nature. It was Behrman's true masterpiece. For 40 years, he waited for inspiration, and he finally found it, not in a grand landscape, but in an artistic deception meant to save a life. This story so beautifully emphasizes the power of art to inspire hope and a longing for life. Art wasn't just a commercial venture for Sue or a distant dream for Johnsy. In Behrman's hands, art was literally a life-saving force of love.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'd really love to leave you with a thought to ponder. This 19th century tale asks us to look closely at our own modern lives. What kind of sacrifices would you willingly make to protect a friend's hope? And perhaps more importantly, what constitutes your own true masterpiece in this world? Is it something you create for fame, or something you do out of love for someone else? Thank you so much for joining me today. I sincerely hope this structured look at the last leaf has enriched your understanding of this gorgeous story. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.